Here are the words of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Many years ago, I wrote, "If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. And if you want yourself to be happy, practice compassion." The Buddhist tradition has, like many of the world's great spiritual traditions, called us to live our lives compassionately. These spiritual traditions teach us to feel connected to our fellow beings and to the world we live in. They celebrate service to others as one of the highest virtues. Today, growing scientific data confirm the insight. Researchers on human happiness find that compassionate service to others is one of the key characteristics shared by many of the world's happiest people. And to me, this makes perfect sense. Because when we help others, the focus of our mind assumes a broader horizon, and we are able to see our own petty problems in a more realistic way. What previously appeared to be daunting and unbearable tends to lose its intensity. The question is, can we cultivate ourselves to be more compassionate? And if so, how do we do it? Here I believe we must recognize the fundamental sameness of the human family and the deeply interconnected nature of our well-being. When you feel connected with others, you are able to open your heart, which I often call our inner door, and reach out to others. In doing so, you acquire a deep sense of security and trust, and a true sense of freedom. The key element of this process is cultivating greater awareness of one's mental states, especially one's emotions and moods. With these practices, you can lay a strong foundation within you, a kind of anchor that provides a true inner home. This is the basis of true inner happiness, a genuine wellspring of joy.
Good morning, and welcome to the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm Pete Wernick, service leader today, while Reverend Lydia takes a much-deserved break and is busy with all the doings of the General Assembly of the UU Association that is taking place as we speak. I'm joined today by Service Associate Eric Williams with Ted Koryath and Emily Jaworski providing music and leading hymns, and our tech ushers, Bill Beachley, Deborah Mensch, and Dave Leonard, who will keep things running smoothly in spite of my goofs. As I say our welcome words today, I invite you to shift to the gallery view on your computer. And if you haven't done so already, scroll through the screen so you can experience the lovely diversity of this congregation tuning in from a variety of locations, adding up to a fellowship that means a lot to us, especially in these troubled times. You are all welcome here today. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, skin tones, shapes, and sizes that come together in your uniqueness, you are welcome here. In all the ways you experience and express gender, you're welcome here. In the beauty that is who you love and how you love, you are welcome here. In all the ways you make your living and the places you are from, you are welcome here. Christian, pagan, humanist, Jew, Buddhist, mystic, Muslim, Unitarian, Universalist, with all the traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here today. No matter how long you've been away, nor how soon you will return, you are welcome here. Whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears, you are welcome here. You're invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. We welcome you today.
And now we will have some announcements. Are you interested in doing personal anti-racism work? This is not a class, but rather an opportunity to do deep and personal work. Research has shown that having an accountability partner helps get the work done. You will receive an ongoing list of resources and a partner with whom you can learn and grow as an anti-racist. Email hannahgrosser@gmail.com to sign up or find out more information. Her email will appear in the chat window now. And at 11 a.m. today, immediately following our service, we will be sharing a video stream on this same Zoom link from General Assembly, the Sunday morning service from GA. We will try to end this service a few minutes early to give you a break before the GA service starts. Because of this special service, we will not have our usual virtual coffee hour after today's service. And the School of Spirit coffee hour will also not be happening today. Back to you, Pete.
Thank you, Eric. If you're new here, we're glad you're here and hope that even on Zoom, you can still experience some of the warmth and love of this fellowship. Each Sunday is different here, so please come back a few times to really get to know us. Please see the chat window for the link to our first-time visitors page. That page has a link to our visitor info form, which invites you to tell us all about yourself and request info about our activities. Or email your contact info to our office manager, Carol, at officemanager@bvuuf.org. Carol's address is in the chat window as well. And check out our fellowship calendar and Connections Weekly, which lists many opportunities to stay connected. Finally, if you're new to us, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. And the chat is a button down at the bottom of your screen, probably. And you can open that up and introduce yourself, and then we'd love to hear about you. Anyway, I think that's all that we have for now, and it's time to light the chalice. And if you have a chalice at home, please light it with me as I light my home chalice. So we all know where our chalices, all the chalices are. Please write in the chat, chalice lit in the name of your town. Please say the words along with me as I light our chalice. There it goes. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. And now I'll sing our bowl again, inviting it to draw you deeper into the present moment and this, our beloved community.
So these are our opening words today. This is a poem, Pandemic. This poem, Pandemic, was composed by UU minister Lynn Unger. What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of times? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling. Give up just for now on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray. Touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has become clear. Do not reach out your hands. Reach out your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live. Now join with us while Tad and Emily lead us in hymn 1012, When I Am Frightened.
When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly? Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give. When I am troubled, will you listen to me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend? Will you be there for me? Comfort me tenderly. Will you share some of your feelings with me? If you will show me commitment, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to love.
Very lovely. That's a beautiful song. Means a lot to me. And thank you, Emily and Tad, for the lovely rendition. I hope you were singing along at home. It's time for our offertory now. Each week we remind ourselves of the abundance of our lives and this community by giving half of our plate away to those organizations that share our values. Today we will give half our offerings to Together Colorado, a nonpartisan, multiracial, multi-faith community organization of 220 congregations, schools, clergy, and faith leaders across our state. Our congregation has worked with Together Colorado for over 10 years to bring about systematic changes in local education, housing, healthcare, and immigrant rights. Together Colorado strives to end mass incarceration, deportation, and gun violence. We'll bring this slide back in a second, but first, as we often do during the offertory, please consider and answer this question in the chat. In this pandemic, what comfort are you enjoying? Or what comfort are you most missing? You'll be hearing some of my banjo music as you ponder and answer the question. Thank you for those amazing comments in the chat, which I was following. This chalice is getting a little funky, so we're going to work on it and get it back going. We gratefully accept your offerings on behalf of this fellowship and Together Colorado. Okay. Our June theme has been compassion, and I think we agree that every month should be Compassion Month. We service leaders have wondered what we can present today beyond confirming that we are indeed pro-compassion. How can we enlarge understanding and include action items doable even by people who have to stay home? First, let's dig deeper into the word itself. Its derivation is to suffer with. Compassion is often thought of as synonymous with empathy, the ability to sense and understand another's emotion. But compassion often implies more, a concern to enhance the welfare of another who suffers or is in need. So empathy is a feeling. Compassion is also a feeling, but it implies action. Compassion is a three-part experience of noticing, feeling, and responding. Noticing another's pain or need, feeling with another, somehow sharing that suffering, responding in some helpful way. As Reverend Lydia has pointed out, we are called to do more than have caring feelings inside, even strong feelings of caring. If we don't do something, what effect can our caring have? Can mere words help? Certainly, yes. Words of encouragement, solace can help. Just listening can often help. Sometimes more is called for. Regrettably, sometimes we can't provide it, and we grieve. I think the entire world felt deep compassion for George Floyd's suffering and suffered with him at our inability to prevent his death. But the massive worldwide response that has resulted since shows how compassion can drive the energy of action. The golden rule extends to everyone. Treat me as well as I wish to be treated, and I'll do the same for you. Extended outward, the golden rule is at the heart of the basic social contract that drives democracies. Everybody has the same rights, at least in theory. But the sad fact is, opportunity and privilege, and even human rights, are not evenly distributed. We know this and feel the need to do something to even the balance. It's just the golden rule. When we see someone who lacks the good fortune we might take for granted, we can choose, practice denial or practice compassion. The Jewish tradition says we will never succeed in healing the world, but we must keep trying. Well, how can we do that? We can make something of a discipline of compassionate thoughts and behavior. My wife, Joan, has been a source of learning and inspiration from our earliest times together. She readily picks up on other people's feelings. She notices and engages people who are used to being invisible to others. It has to do with how she was raised. More about that later. I'll contrast that with the way I was raised. My parents, born to immigrants, grew up poor and yearning for financial security. My dad often worked both days and nights. The idea was if you work hard enough starting in school, you'll have security. Their occupations involved helping people, and they engaged in philanthropy when they could. So that was good modeling. They did teach me good manners and how to fit in. But looking back, I was not trained in compassion. Like most boys, I was expected to compete and achieve. Sports were big. In sports, half the people lose. And your job is to deliver that character-building experience, losing to your opponent. Sports training doesn't include cultivating compassion for your opponent. Same as in school, you work to get ahead of as many people as you can, get into the best school, etc. Not many points for compassion. But for me, growing up, the sadnesses of the world were there to see in Life magazine and in the streets of New York, and they touched me. When I was in college, there was a tragic famine in Biafra. People were on the street collecting money, and I would donate. But a challenging notion appeared in my mind. Anything that I spent on myself besides bare necessities, shouldn't I share it with the people who need it more? Isn't that dictated by the golden rule? It started to bother me when I'd shell out $4 for a concert, but I really wanted to go to those concerts. I saw examples of people living the ascetic life, monks, or closer to home, Ralph Nader, who famously owned only 2 plain suits and lived in a humble apartment. Oh, we have our chalice back here. That dilemma has stayed with me. How much of my good fortune should I keep for myself and my family, and how much should I share? It's a persistent and thorny question. Any of us could today empty our life savings into the collection plate minus enough for our necessities, or we could tithe the standard 10%. At some point of sacrifice, our conscience, the guardian of the golden rule, says that will be okay, but I'll never know where that right point is. Sometimes I feel I'm pulling my weight, and sometimes I don't. I think any of us whose resources are more than we absolutely need might ponder this. For the sake of a better world, I wish more people would ponder this, especially the super rich folks of the world. Could you spare 1 yacht and feed a village? I never get a chance to ask them that, but I wonder. It would take compassion, but maybe they weren't trained that way. For any of us, it starts with empathy, that important human feeling that leads us to act compassionately. When I met Joan at age 23, I was taken by her way of noticing people and showing caring about them, especially shy people used to being invisible. I realized I could learn a lot from her. Joan's from a large family, 9 kids. A favorite story goes back to when she was about 6. They were all in the family car heading for a play in Denver. Driving over the viaduct, Joan's dad noticed a woman with her young children walking very slowly. Her dad dropped the family at the event and drove back to offer the woman a ride, took them to their home, and rejoined the family at the play. I don't know how long it took John Leonard to do that good deed back around 1950, but here we are in 2020, 70 years later, and Joan still proudly references how that act inspired her. When we were still in our 20s, she was an attendant at an assisted living home and got to know the residents, mostly born in the 1800s. She would tell me about them, and along the way, it dawned on me that old people are not just slow and hard of hearing with white hair, but had a lifetime of experiences, and were now facing the slow loss of what, at the time, I was taking fully for granted. When you're mostly around 20-somethings, there's a lot to focus on besides people your grandparents' age living quietly through their later years. But Joan's stories were sinking in. One day, on the long way back home from a Carolina bluegrass festival, I felt inspired to write a gospel-sounding song with a meaningful message. I thought of a low voice coming in singing, "Let me tell you, my friend," and I wondered, what would I like to tell my friend? It turned into this song, "Just Like You." Here is Hot Rides performing that song on the Nashville Network about 1987. Looking at the 41-year-old banjo player now reinforces the point of the song.
Brown, he lives on a farm. He's been a farmer all his life, until he had to slow down when his heart broke down. He went under a surgeon's knife, and the 4 kids that he raised all lived so far from home. Since his wife died last December, Hector's all alone. And if you're not thinking a man could be alone and blue, let me tell you, my friend, he's just like you. City, and her landlord lives out of town. When the cold wind blows and chills her, her backache gets her down. So she reads by day, she sleeps by night. She never goes nowhere, and scarcely anybody even knows she's there. She's just like you. Well, I know it's not too long ago you were only 21. Time moves only one way. You won't always be young. And if you don't think when you get old you could be alone and blue, let me tell you, my friend, you got some thinking to do. And if you don't think tell you, my friend, he's just like you. And if you don't think an old man could be alone and blue, let me tell you, my friend, he's just like you.
That's a little time traveling there. Just Like You became well known in bluegrass circles. I'm glad that its golden rule message continues to remind listeners to look in on some of those forgotten people. I've mentioned Joan's way of noticing people who rarely get noticed. Driving at night, she might see someone walking along the road, so we find a way to loop around and see if help is needed. Or in line at the store, she might compliment an elderly woman's hairdo or something she senses the person might be proud of. It's a quiet delight for me to see how that person gets pleasantly sparked just by someone noticing. I've turned these moments into a little exercise. When I'm waiting someplace, I might normally start checking email, but my exercise is to instead focus on someone there and imagine how much their mother loves them, what's their job, or what they may be worried about. I change an unknown person to someone exactly as significant as I am, and I wish them well. Unlike Joan, I'm not apt to start a conversation, but in that short interval, I might imagine, what if they just got some good news or some bad news, or they might be just containing their joy or sadness. I invest some thought in their humanity, just for practice. This exercise has helped empathy stay more at the ready for me than in my younger years. Nowadays, I notice in so many people the need to vent frustration with the current ills, and there's so many of them. Carrying this burden every day as we carry on with our lives, or try to, Giving folks a chance to just vent for a bit, even if you know exactly what they're going to say, is a compassionate act, I think. With all the current protests, it's been frustrating to stay home for safety reasons. I really want to get shoulder to shoulder with Black people to let them know I care and I know they matter. And not just African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, or millions, the millions of poor white folks whose skills won't get them prosperity or even home ownership. What can I do? I wish it was more than donations and voting and letters to my elected representatives. But let's remember, something is far better than nothing. A satisfying avenue I've found is helping immigrants learn English. You may have heard of Intercambio, based in Boulder, that for about 20 years has been training and coordinating volunteers to do that vital job. I'm usually paired with the students for 2 sessions a week for a while in their home, working with people from Mexico, Nepal, the Czech Republic, and Peru. I've gotten to know a lot of people. It's about conversing and developing confidence with the time that we spend together. I've gotten to know my students and some of their families and get a good feeling from making connections, helping them learn, and being part of a solution and not just part of a problem. I hope to find ways to join with members of other vulnerable populations, to share our know-how to help them accomplish important goals and to live more fulfilling lives. We are at a special time in history when compassion and the need for it has come to the forefront with energy we've not seen for many years. Let us renew our public call for compassion and do what we can on the personal level to cultivate it within ourselves and those we care for. Thank you for listening. Amen. And now, I invite us into our time of community connection, our time of sacred sharing. Deborah will remind you of how to let us know you'd like to share. When you do, whether by voice or by chat, please tell us your name and where you live, and briefly let us know what's in your heart today. I'll put a stone in our sacred waters on your behalf. Okay, and I am now adding one more stone for any joy or concern in the silent sanctuary of our hearts, knowing that we are bound together in this community and in the web of life. What a difficult time this has been for so many people, but the combination of horrible things and stresses on so many people have also yielded a variety of responses, some of which are extremely inspiring. And it's amazing to me to see how much is starting to change in ways that there were efforts for change decades ago and nothing happened. And suddenly in the last couple of weeks, all these statues that shouldn't have been erected in the first place are now gone. And legislation is working its way through state chambers as well as the United States Senate and Congress in general. And it's very inspiring to see what can happen. I think it all goes back to the extreme outrage everybody felt watching a murder happen as though it was supposed to happen according to the policeman. And that image, I think, burned itself into so many people's minds that it caused empathy and compassion to flow much more heavily than it has in so long. And so this terrible death has resulted in a lot of positive, and that's the way things often work. Something terrible brings back something positive, as well as the terrible factors. So with that in mind, I can just say, we hope that everybody will keep their head on straight and do the right thing, stay safe, and be supportive of all the things that we really need to support. You are now invited to sing along on the song Lean on Me, which is starting to be something of an anthem in the time of COVID. The recording by Tad and Emily was not made on their usual equipment as they're currently traveling, so Emily is a little quieter than usual. All the more reason for you to sing along, so let's do it.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we arise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride. If I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry on, right up the road, I'll share your load. If you just want me, lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Just call on me, neighbor, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. It won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
Tad and Emily both. That was great. Oh, what a great song that is. Makes me emotional hearing that. It means so much. It's time now to extinguish our chalice. Please say these words with me. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, nor the energy of action. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Let us keep in mind every month is Compassion Month, not just June. Please make an action plan in keeping with your compassion to do at least one thing. However small you think it may be, that will be one more thing to help the arc of the moral universe keep bending toward justice. Be well, my friends.